Hi, everybody. Essen and I are here. I can't see him when we're recording, by the way, so he's whatever. Hi, invisible partner. Here for another. We have changed the name, by the way. Some of you may be happy to know it's no longer Couples Conversations, because apparently we get very preachy, and now it's called Couples Counseling. Here for another Couples Counseling video. Say hi, Essen.
Hi, Essen.
So we've been away for a hot minute. End of the year, real life busyness, sick kid busyness, blah.
Oh.
Real life. We'd like to be back in, this world for a while. So we wanted to check in again and say hi to our online community. And we had a couple of requests for our videos, so that's awesome. I'm glad you guys, at least some of you, are enjoying them. And
You fools. You terrible, terrible fools.
Derek is letting us continue to make them. Yay! Ooh, thanks, Derek. So, our last video, which was quite a while ago, we talked about character realism in MMOs. And now, tonight, we're going to be talking about, or today, whatever. This time, we're going to be talking about world realism in MMOs. And this is following this week on the dev stream that happened on Thursday, where they talked about climate and fractures. So, it just seemed like a really good time to talk about this topic. Essen?
So let's do that.
Let's do that.
Ready, set, go.
Okay. So, by the way, if you haven't already watched the dev stream on climates and fractures, go check that out on Pantheon's, page, Twitch and YouTube. Also, the after party with Des, Manarohan, and Redbeard Flynn is up on Pantheon Plus's Twitch and YouTube. So go check that out. That was really fun.
And now let's go.
And now let's go. So, weather / climate / fractures. I'm super excited about this because.
Okay. First, tell us what's the difference.
What's the difference? Well, I think weather and climate are the same things. So there's the climate, which is like affects the world, and it's like ever changing. And hopefully now, since we've been out of the loop for a little bit, I apologize ahead of time if there's any information that I or Essen is just like it's out there and we don't know it. So sorry about that. But I'm assuming it's gonna be like climate that makes sense for like the area that you're in. Like a deserty area would probably be hot and arid, and maybe there would be some like sandstorms and stuff.
There are cold deserts.
And then there's like cold zones, or not zones, but areas where there's gonna be like, snowstorms, and frigid is the thing, and like, howling cold winds. So that's climate. And then there's fractures, which are like things that are happening in the world that's not all encompassing like the whole area, but it's like you come upon this like area where there's a more isolated kind of thing happening. There's a fracture, there's like a tear in the,
So like a fracture might be like a area of, let's say, 30 meters dome where there's like anaerobic properties in that fracture.
Yes, that could be a thing. Yes. A lot of people were comparing them to like rifts and rift. I made the comparison of like the events that happened in Guild Wars 2, where you saw it on your map and it was like in a certain area and you ran over and interacted with it.
Yeah, the difference between fractures and rifts are that rifts were like a static thing that happened on a random occurrence. I played Rift at launch, and like it was exciting when a rift came down the first like 20 times. And then it was like, oh, there's a rift. And the rifts are different. Like, this was a plant lift, and this was a death rift, and this was a fire lift. But, like there's a rift, you do the thing, you're done, and that's it. This is going to be like something...
And the thing is usually kill the bad guys.
Yeah, kill the bad guys, and another wave comes out, kill the bad guys, and if you succeed, a boss comes out and kill the boss again.
Yep.
Fractures are a bit different because there's something stacked on top of current content.
Wait,
so you'll have content...
Did you watch this video?
No, I just know these things because it makes sense.
As Essen just not watching the dev stream, but just knowing the thing. Okay, go ahead.
And I'm right. So, fractures will be content that's stacked on top of current content. So let's say you have like an ogre camp, and they're a bunch of shamans, and they're praying to, I don't know, the god of war, as ogres do, I suppose. And their hefty prayers bring upon a fracture of malice, which is not a thing, but I'm making shit up. I'm making
He's
stuff up.
totally making this up. It sounds great. Keep going.
So the malice, let's say that it's like a visible aura around the ogre camp that increases damage done and reduces healing. So like that's an effect, a fracture upon that camp that isn't normally there, that is there because of a certain event. So it just makes certain areas different every time you play them, or some different times you play them.
Not sure that they're all going to be tied to specific events, but yes.
No, but they could
not
be.
always there. Yes,
they could be. The point is, it's content
triggered.
stacked on top of content to make it different.
Yes, and they can be. It was confirmed in the stream, like they can be triggered, player triggered. There was some talk about kiting all the undead in the zone into a certain area to try to trigger gloom by necros, which was pretty hilarious, and I'm sure will be attempted.
If you kite all the undead, that's just a party. Like, that's not a problem.
Especially if you're a necro.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the difference between climate and fractures.
Cool.
So, yeah, I'm super excited about this because obviously this is adding a ton of realism to the game. The climate's adding a ton of realism. The fractures, not so much realism, but definitely with like the immersion and the fact that like there's something happening that's going to affect your character. So in that sense, I feel like it adds world realism. So my favorite thing about climate and what we know about fractures is the immersion. You're playing, you're not just running around in like a static, this area always looks the same, this bad guy always spawns over here, you go, exactly where to run to kill it. This is making me think of EverQuest, where like there were some roaming mobs in EverQuest, but there was a lot of like static camps. Certainly
that was the whole point.
Yeah. Yeah, marked on the map, there it is, go kill it.
Yeah.
Well, when maps came out, they didn't have maps originally, and that was a pack that I downloaded. But anyway, yeah, that's super boring. Like, let's go to this spot that we know exactly where it is and do the same thing as always and get the same loot as always. This boss, he drops 3 possible loots.
Well, you want some of that, because if you really want, a certain pair of boots, and you're like, this is something what you really, really, really want, you want to know, where to go to get them. But just because you're going to kill that boss doesn't mean you have to kill him the same way every time. So if there's a fracture there, you might not be prepared for, a fracture of cold, and like, I don't have my acclimation stuff for cold, or for super heat, or gloom, or whatever, whatever it is.
Yeah, normally this is like a living mob, and then like a gloom fracture happens, and now he's an undead mob. I don't know if that's possible.
And maybe, depending on the fracture, the loot changes as well. Maybe you have better loot for harder fractures, or maybe you have loot attuned to the fracture. So say you have, like, you're looking for those boots to drop, and these boots drop, and there's like a gloom fracture, and the boots drop, and you kill the guy and the gloom fracture, and the boots drop with a +1 resistance to gloom or something like that. Like, well, now you have different gear depending on what the fracture is, and that's completely different.
Yeah, and super exciting. I like that idea. Super fun. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff where, well, I mean, based on the dev stream, that's this type of stuff it sounds like they are trying to incorporate to keep the world fresh and, so that it's not static, and so that you're experiencing things different all the time. And, even if you've been playing in the same zone, same area, it's going to still feel fresh and new, and things are going to happen that you didn't expect. So, super excited about this. So, in the dev stream, it was confirmed that some races will be naturally acclimated to certain type of climates. I didn't catch if there's going to be acclimation to certain types of fractures, but certain races being acclimated to certain types of climates, I think makes total sense. Like, we sort of talked about this in our character realism video a little bit, but like, I feel like certain races should have strengths and weaknesses depending on like where they hail from. or like what their physical like attributes might
Yeah,
be.
and I think they do. I think let me just consult the website here and confirm.
It's the devs confirmed that some races will be naturally acclimated, but we don't
Yeah.
know what those acclimations will be yet.
Sure we do.
So,
It says Dark Mer grants an innate bonus to anaerobic and pressure acclimation, which makes
yeah,
sense.
it's not really climate, but yeah.
Yeah.
So there could be a fracture that impacts, what is it called? Anaerobic? Aerobic? Not
Anaerobic.
Anaerobic, not
Aerobic means aerobic means with air. Anaerobic means without air.
Yeah. So there could be a possibly, conjecture again, a fracture that happens that affects anaerobic.
Oh my god.
What are you? Me? Is
No,
it me?
people keep messaging on Discord. Don't shut the hell up. You're good. You're good.
And then the Myrrh would have a natural affinity for that. So you would be like, oh, awesome that we have this like Myrrh in our group right now who can like handle this better and is at least probably going to live longer or, you know, be able to do certain things in this fracture that maybe the halfling is going to be struggling with.
Yeah, or maybe like there's like a anaerobic fracture and you're going to go in. Someone needs to go in and hit a switch and turn off that anaerobic fracture. So you send in the Dark Myrrh. Turn it off because you get the best acclimation to it.
Yeah, I wonder what other kinds.
I've said Myrrh like 3 times in a row. By the way, there should be a scoreboard. How many times I've said it correctly?
Say it incorrectly at all?
No, I've said it correctly like all 3 times. So
it's Myrrh. It's not Mir.
I know.
It's not Meyer. The talk about the pronunciations lately has been hilarious. Anywho,
cow traps. I like cow traps. I think we're sticking with cow traps. By the way, I think it's fantastic. I love it.
I wonder what Scar's acclamation would be too. Does it say online? I don't know.
Murder.
Anyway, murder. Anyway, so that part is super fun to me. Just like your character is going to have things that they like, strengths basically, like acclamations that give them strengths, and then things that are probably going to make them weaker, that they're going to struggle with more. And that's part of the fun of like trying to make a balanced group or forging ahead with a maybe unbalanced group because these are your friends and you want to play with them anyway and you're just going to make the best of it.
Well, yeah, so, and it also just like makes you kind of feel special when you're playing.
Yes, true.
That's cool.
Ziplocs in the dev stream asked the question, will perception, and I think he said something else, but I thought it was a typo, but will perception basically or other abilities enable you to sense fractures before other players? So if your character has higher perception than, you know, your friend that you're playing with, and you're like running through this area together, do you sense it before? Like if there's one that it's not already there, but it could be or maybe you haven't just come across it yet, or maybe it's something that can be triggered. Will your character perceive it before your friend that you're playing with? That would be fun.
If you have higher perception, then I would imagine so.
Yeah, this has not been confirmed. This was a question that was asked.
Okay. Makes sense.
I was asking if there would be like audio tells, and Des in the after party stream said there are audio tells for climate. So like when it's starting to like snow or sleet or whatever, you'll hear the ice like tinkling as it starts to land on the ground.
We have that super old image from Amber Fate where they're going across the bridge and the edges of the stream start to frost over.
So and cool.
It's very apparent like what's going on. Like it's getting colder.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure there's I mean, remember what Joppa was before he was what is he, producer now, I suppose? Before he was producer, like, he was a sound guy. Like, so I imagine sound is going to be very much built into the climate system and the fracture system.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you walked into gloom and there wasn't any sound effect. Like, there has to be. Come on.
Or even, like, before you see it, though. Like, that's the part I wonder, is, like, before you can visually see it on your screen, it would be cool if there was, like, an audio tell. And you, like, I was saying this in the after party, like, you have to be paying attention. And like you'll hear the audio tell first, and then you'll start to see something.
Well,
so
it's
like
it has to be like proximity based. So if you're like 10 feet away from the gloom, it would make sense that you would start to feel like, you know, the dread of the gloom before you got actually into the gloom, right?
Wait, now we're feeling things? This is
the sound. Well, if you're a character
That's
there,
some deep immersion there.
if you're a character and you're in the game and you're 10 feet away from a dragon, would you be scared of the dragon 10 feet away from it, or when you're already in its mouth? No, you feel scared of it 10 feet away from it.
I got what you're saying.
Yeah, there's that.
So then we've kind of also touched on this a little bit, but like the variety and the visuals in the gameplay, like gloom was one of the fractures that was confirmed, and we're assuming it's probably going to be like this dark, gloomy kind of cloud thing that
despair.
you're going to. Yes. Joppa also mentioned, and I don't think he named what this one is, but he mentioned tiles shifting around or phasing out on the ground as another
God
type
help
of
us.
feature. Yeah, like so. Obviously, you would see that, and that sounds super interesting. And I wonder what that's gonna be like. But then I wonder what sound would be associated with that too. Like, would you hear?
I don't know, man.
grind
It just
as
feels like
it
I'm going
goes
right back to like Mega Man 3 and those
Yeah.
the Heat Man level. The platforms moving. Oh my god, kill me.
So it is confirmed that some characters are going to have like natural affinity to certain climates. I wonder, and I don't know if this has been confirmed. Sorry guys if this has, and I don't know. Please drop it in the comments and educate me, school me. I needed to catch up a little bit because we've been MIA. But I wonder if the like mobs in the game are also going to have natural acclimations to climates and fractures, which would be fun.
I would imagine so.
Right. And then like the idea of like using that to your advantage, like if there's like a storm, are lightning spells going to do more damage during the storm because of
that's
the
different.
electricity in the air?
That's abilities based on climate. But if you got mobs based on climate, I mean, I would imagine that certain climates would activate or deactivate certain mobs. Like maybe the bandits just go inside when it's raining. I don't blame them. But maybe like these like swamp monsters come out.
That would be so funny. Oh, I'm out of here, guys. It's raining.
I don't want to get wet.
But now instead of like if you're trying to like fight the bandits in this camp, they're not spread around the camp anymore. They're all in the building.
They're
now.
inside.
Like, you gotta change your tactic because you're not pulling singles anymore.
It's wet out there.
That is so funny. I love that idea, honey. I don't think they're gonna go that far, but that would be hilarious.
You think bandits are like, we all gotta be outside when it's raining? Or you think they're like, selfish, lazy people? Like they're probably selfish, lazy people who don't want to get wet.
That would be so funny. Maybe they build a campfire like when it's cold.
They're still wet.
And not in the rain, when it's cold, and then you have to like now you can use this campfire to your advantage in fighting them. That would be. I mean, maybe we're asking for a bit much now. This is a little bit. I love that idea though. That's the level I want to go, but I don't want to wait, until I'm 50 for the game to get to that point. So I'm super excited with what they have talked about being in the game so far already. So yeah, let's not let my wish list. So what are the cons? The pros being like for having this level of immersion for the climate and fractures is the pro is the immersion, and then like the variety in your gameplay. But what are the cons to having weather, climate, and fractures in your MMOs? Cons? Are there cons? Do you think there are cons?
I mean, some people might not like it, but I don't like those people, so I don't care.
So I'm thinking, obviously, needing to be more prepared. Like you have to plan more thoroughly now to go out and do it. Is that a con? I don't think it's a con. Some people might think it's a con. Like
again, those people I don't care about.
I like needing to be that prepared. So like you're going to go do a certain thing in a certain climate, or or have seen or have heard that there's like this kind of fracture, and then you have to prepare. So one thing they talked about was like glyphs that you like equip in the glyph slot. So you have to try to go out and like find or acquire these glyphs to make sure you have the right ones to help you in this setting.
That's fine. I the only thing that worries me about any game, especially a game of an MMO, is keeping everything simple. Mm-hmm. If you make just stuff too complicated,
having the bandits going when it's raining is not simple. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, no, it is for the player.
Okay, for the player.
Yeah, well, that's what matters at the end of the day. Like, you're not selling the game to the devs; you're selling it to the players. So, like, you're just keeping systems as simple as possible. So, for example, the glyph system should be really simple. Like, you have glyphs and you put them on, and like that's it, right? They're a separate window, and you put the glyphs in the spots, and that's where they are. And they're not in your inventory. They're just in their separate little spots, and they're easy to upgrade. I mean, like, not easy like in gameplay wise, but not easy as in gameplay wise, but like simple in the menu to upgrade, right? You just hit the button, and once you earn it, like that's it. But if you make stuff more complicated, like it's just needlessly complicated ruins things.
I agree with all that, but I still would like the idea of like interacting with the world to do things too. Like if it's cold, am I going to be able to like build a campfire to stay warmer? I don't know if that's possible, but I think that would be super fun. And then you would have to have like the stuff in your inventory to build a campfire. You can't just build one without, I
mean, I'm okay with that. I think that's something you can add later on. Your primary source to stay warm is going to be the primary source is going to be your glyphs for cold resistance.
Yes,
I just like you could do a campfire. You could do build a campfire if you're like actually like doing a camp, like camping mobs on a certain spot and just pull mobs back to the campfire.
Right.
But I think in most gameplay scenarios, you're not going to be doing that. The gameplay we've seen, like, there's not so much camping as like you're moving through the dungeon very slowly.
There's more camping in Pantheon than there has been in other games, for sure.
Yeah, but
you can have a camp.
But yes, but not to the extent as there was in EverQuest, I believe. But I mean,
never mind. Okay, I agree. Glyphs should be like, or whatever, like that should be the primary way that you respond to this, but I just think it would be cool if you could also use the environment. So I have that listed under con, because it could be like, I don't have the stuff in my inventory to make a campfire or whatever. I don't have the glyph that I need. Now I have no way to like respond to, whatever fracture or climate that I'm stuck in now, where I wish I had those things. So that
sucks. Looks like you're not going there.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of the game. It's like there are areas you can't go to yet.
So
that's the whole point of the game is like merging MMOs and basically Zelda and Metroid, like areas that you can see but you can't go to, and that's if you don't have the glyphs for it, you can't go there yet.
Or
and
you
later
can,
you will
be.
Die. Well, you can't go there, right?
And then also like environment interaction in general for world realism. So I always like the games where you walk through a fire and it actually does damage to you, as opposed to the game
but
where, like you walk through a fire and it like I'm standing in this fire.
And 99% of games, you walk through the fire, you've got 1,000 health, and it says -2, and like that's it. Like, well, you took damage.
I don't want it to kill me like instantly, but
I know, but like if you're on fire, you should do like at least like 25% of your health. I think. Like, have you ever been on fire before?
I'm good with that. I want to have to like have awareness to not run through a fire, or I want it to matter. Yeah.
Being on fire is not like -2 damage. It's being on fire.
You have an interesting note here, Essen. This is Essen's note. If I try to get too close to the king or go into a restricted area, will the guards give me a warning stab?
Warning stab is a pretty good warning. Like,
oh my gosh.
It's a pretty serious warning.
That's an environmental realism for sure. Like not being able to go to certain areas, and the NPCs actually reacting to you trying to do that.
Some good old-fashioned police brutality right there.
So, one thing that has been confirmed in a co-stream a while back was like disposition. Certain mobs are going to have certain types of dispositions. I don't know the whole list of what they are, but in the co-stream that I saw, the spiders in the cave that he was in were like, some of them were afraid of the fire.
They're pyrophobic.
Pyrophobic. That's so fun. Like, I love that there's that level of detail in a spider that you're fighting. I was playing the Vanguard emulator last summer, and the reason why I stopped playing it actually is because, I mean, this is being run by like people. It's an emulator, but there was none of that. There was no like differentiation between the mobs. It
Yeah.
was just like turn up the health on this guy so it takes longer to kill, or turn up the like how hard this guy hits. There was no other differentiation, so I just got super bored with it. So mobs having different abilities, mobs having like things that make sense, like healers heal and stand away from the group to cast, like they don't want to be in the middle of a mosh pit because they're healers or casters or whatever. Mobs being afraid of fire, and then you have a player in your group that has a torch or has a wizard's using fire spells, like, and they're reacting to that, like they run from it, or they just react differently when you're fighting them. That's the
Yeah.
kind of stuff that
The
is like, ugh.
the regular mobs that we've seen, and we've seen it in the pre-op streams, in Houndir's Cave specifically. We've seen it like regular mobs in the dungeons have basically what you would consider raid mechanics.
Mhm.
There's a group of like the Ratkin, and they were like there was like a rogue Ratkin and a shaman Ratkin and like a warrior Ratkin. And the warrior does this thing where he does like a flurry in front of him. And if you stand in front of that flurry, you will die. And it's an AoE. It's like a cone AoE. So the tank will die. Everyone in front of that cone will die. You have to move behind them or to the sides of them. And the rogue Ratkin will teleport to the group member who's furthest away. So what you want to do is everyone wants to group up. Except you don't want to group up because the guy does the AoE flurry that will kill the whole group. So you have to call out.
Yep.
When the flurry's coming, everyone has to back away, but also stay grouped up so the Ratkin doesn't gank the wizard back there. And then there's a healer who's actually casting real powerful heals on his allies. If you do not interrupt his heal, he will heal his ally for like 50% of his health, and that's not a small thing. So like and then once they start getting low in health, they'll start to run away. So you just slow them also. So it's like it was like a very complicated dance that the players had to learn in the stream for just a regular group of like 3 mobs. And then you can add in dispositions on top of that. And so those mobs might be different. One might be an alarmist, where if you get down to like 75% health, he might run for help. And that's like
yeah.
Like there's lots of different dispositions. What did I guys say? Depositions. Deposes, man. Lots of different dispositions that change. That again, that's adding a layer of gameplay on top of gameplay, which is exactly what you want.
This level of detail is why I'm so dedicated to Pantheon without even really getting to, without the game being out yet. This is why I'm so dedicated to them, because they are putting this much effort into it, because they want you to have this kind of experience, this level of experience. And the comparison game, but like it harkens to the days of classic EverQuest for me, where you had to do that. That's exactly what was happening. There were that many kinds of mobs, and they were doing all the different things that they were supposed to do based on like what their class was. And yeah, like there was so much planning, there was so much communication that had to happen while you were in a group, like in there playing together. It wasn't just like press 1, 2, and 3 over and over again.
The communication is the biggest part about that, because you can imagine in that group fighting those 3 mobs, if you're not in voice chat, you're just not going to win. It's not going to go well.
Well, we used to do this with text chat.
Yeah, across 56K modems, and I bet it wasn't great.
What are those things called that you program in?
Macros.
Macros, all the macros. But yes, and I'm so excited for this level of detail. On that note, like abilities, characters have abilities, obviously. Mobs also have abilities, and I don't know too much about how that looks yet, but in another or the same co-stream that I was watching, it's the same one. His stealth. He was a rogue, and he was stealthed, and it dropped when he got too close to the fire. So, like we were just saying, another level of detail where you have to be aware of this, you have to plan for this, like,
So
You
light.
can't wander through the cave in the dark without being able to see, but then your rogue like can't be stealth if he's too close to the fire. Just all this stuff that you have to like.
Well, light is a concept that is actually a lot bigger than it might appear. Because
Light.
we know that darkness in this game is a big deal. Because we've seen the game at like dark nighttime in the game, and it's like, well, it's dark. You can't see. You can't see. Sure.
Real.
And
The
we
actual
know
dark.
and we know there are abilities in the game that help mitigate this. Like the enchanter has a little glowy ball that's neato, and rangers get like a fire arrow, and everyone gets a hip lantern, which is a little nice thing. But you can also whip out a torch, and having a torch equipped will lower your DPS, but it's actually kind of worth it sometimes because it's actually dark. You can see where you're going.
Yeah, Java's a big fan of the actual dark.
But like, light is a big deal. I would like to see for the stealth system where it's not just like you go close to light and you're like out of stealth. I would like to see it as more of a gradient thing. So like if you're playing Skyrim, which a few people have, you know that in the stealth system there's a little solid line, and then as you become more detected, it opens up into a wide eye.
Yeah.
And I wish it was kind of the same thing for like getting close to light. As you got closer to light, you got more detectable, and less detectable as you get further away from it. That would be interesting. And also, we have a bunch of abilities to give us light, as I just mentioned with the ranger arrow and the enchanter thing. I wish maybe rogues or rangers had the ability to also take away light. So if there were like torches on the wall in Black Rose Keep, I wish like a ranger could shoot like a blackout arrow and like take out that torch, so the rogue could sneak up easier or something that.
Water arrow.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, good old water arrow. I don't know how.
A moistened arrow tip.
The old wet towel arrow. They hate it. Everyone hates a wet towel. Slap.
There's water arrows in Oblivion, but anyway.
Are there?
Yes. Yeah. Arrows that have water. Anyway. Not Skyrim. Did I say Oblivion? Divinity. The Divinity games.
Yeah. They would.
Yeah. That kind of stuff. That would definitely be. Well, a water arrow is not realistic, but putting out the fire.
But the idea. Yeah,
putting out the light. Yeah.
Again, I'll go back to Skyrim again because it's just so popular. You go into a tomb that hasn't been opened in 4,000 years, and you're going in there, like all these candles are lit and the torches are lit. I'm like, the hell is going? And there's like, I don't know, but you see this in every game. You're in this dungeon and there's candles and torches lit, and like, no, nobody's supposed to be here. You're the first person to be here in like 10,000 years, and like all the candles are lit. Like,
yeah, that breaks my realism real quick. That kind of stuff.
Give me a dungeon where none of the torches are lit, but there are torches on the walls, and then you can light them, and they stay lit for like half an hour, whatever it is. Like that would be cool, and so you can see your progress you've made.
Burn out, if they actually burned out instead of staying lit.
Yeah, for like an hour or something like that, and you go back and light them again. Whatever.
Okay. Moving on.
Side note, anyways.
So. My last note here is like mounts and climate and fractures. So we know that there's going to be tameable mounts. We know that it's been confirmed that some mounts will give you an affinities for certain things. I believe some of that was climate affinity, although I'm not 100% sure on that. It was not confirmed in the stream this week whether or not the mounts would give you affinities or bonuses or whatever for fractures. So I'm curious if that's going to happen. I'm also curious so we know that your mount can give you things to help you counteract the environment. I wonder if the mounts will be affected by the climate and the fractures. Like, if I forget which thing it is that like will snare you, but will your mount also get snared? Like, or will you just be able to just like hop on your mount and ride out of there and not have to deal with the thing because your mount's not affected? I think it would be super cool if it was.
Your mount should be affected by what kind of mount it is. Like if you have a yak mount, I think it should do pretty well in the cold. But if you have a raptor mount, I think it's not going to do very well in the cold, and it's going to do especially poorly in the cold. And just like the yak's going to do especially poorly in the desert because it's overheating.
Right. If you have we're getting super conjecture-y and fantasy here, but if you have a unicorn mount, it would probably not do too well in the gloom.
Unicorns.
Oh, that was just a. Sorry, I have a 5-year-old daughter. That's unicorns.
I know. So many
Or my
unicorns in my life. So many unicorns.
Okay, so let's wrap this up.
Actually,
We're trying to
she's really into frogs. Actually,
is,
so
and
let
a
me tell you,
frog mount.
a frog mount would be clutch.
Yeah, frogs would
I
not
would
do
love
well
a frog mount. I would still use it though. I love frog mount. Give me a frog mount. Give me a big bullfrog.
Giant frogs. Okay, so try not to let these videos drag on forever. Let's wrap this up. So
Every time.
I think this is your note here, Essen. Realism should be in relation to the actual world. For example, in Terminus, it would be realistic for a giant to show up and kick down a city wall, but not for a giant robot to do the same.
That's not my note. I wouldn't say giant robot.
That is totally your note. I didn't write that. But I agree with it, yes. And that was a question that was answered in the after party after the dev stream this week. Mana Rohan asked me, like, what things I would be okay with happening, like in a fracture or, whatever. And I said, I'm up for anything. But then no, I'm up for anything that it makes sense to the world. Don't break my realism.
I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem.
That seems very off character for the devs.
Mm-hmm. And then my final thought is that we want a game with enough realism that we understand it and relate to it. So we want to light the torches on the wall or put the torches out or have the mobs react in a way that, based on what their class is or their race is, like, makes sense, based on the rules that we know that we've been given. But we don't want it to be so realistic that it's not going to be playable on a large scale with lots of other characters.
I would
lots
just
of other people.
What I would do is I would just make a ranger with that water arrow or whatever, the blackout arrow. And if there's a group of mobs sitting next to a torch, I would just shoot that torch out and have the mobs go, huh? What? And then relight the torch. And I would just do that like over and over and over again for like 20 minutes. Huh?
Oh,
what?
God.
I would be so. It's like the stupidest thing, but I would laugh every time.
So I'm thinking about, like, large scale. We actually mentioned this in the character realism video about, like, the characters or the NPCs in the game having, like, solid bodies. So, like, we talked about that then, but, like, solid bodies.
Solid bodies. You mean like you can't walk through them.
Yeah.
Right.
So that adds to the realism, but that would also make it really tricky to navigate, like, in a city when you're trying to get to, like, a crafting table, which we talked about then, and I don't want to rehash it too much, but that's basically, like, my thought on realism, is that I want it real enough that it makes sense based on the world that we actually know, like real life, cold, snows, it gets cold, that sort of thing. Like, we shouldn't have a blizzard in a, like, desert area in the game. But I don't want it so realistic that, like, it's making it hard for me to play the game, like, yeah. And I like it to be challenging. I want to have to plan. I want to have to react to things. But I don't want it to become so cumbersome that, like, it really, like, you said something in the after party dev stream about, like, if it's not, what did you say? If it's not fun, then you're just, like, running errands online. You're not playing a game anymore or something like
yeah.
that.
I logged into WoW like a year ago. And I started a quest. And it was just no challenge whatsoever. And it's like, oh, all I'm doing is running errands online. This sucks.
Yep.
Just running errands online. It's just a complete waste of time. I don't even feel like I'm getting anything out of it.
Mm-hmm. So, that's my take on it. But I'm super excited about the direction that Pantheon is going, or seems to be going, based on the information that we've seen. It's the reason that I'm still here, hanging out, cheering them on, waiting patiently. Mostly patiently.
Yeah, the cool part about the phase they're in right now is that the faster they develop,
Mm-hmm.
which is really cool. It's kind of like a what is it? A compounding effect.
Compounding effect, yeah.
Yeah. So it's
They
cool to
definitely
watch
seem
it
to
happen.
pick up. They seem to pick up last year, which was perfect timing for our arrival.
Last year,
My arrival. You've been around. That was my arrival.
Their whole last year or so was basically building the foundation, the guts of the thing. So, like, it's not very exciting to show that off. But now we're really, like, we're getting the content. Oh, don't die. Okay, there you go.
I remembered to mute that time, I think. I
Thank
did.
you.
Anyway, so wrapping it up, guys, let us know what you think about world realism in MMOs? Are you for it? Are you against it? What are your favorite types of like realism things that you've experienced in other games? What are you looking forward to in Pantheon? What do you hope they keep out of Pantheon as far as realism goes? Drop it in the comments. Let us know what you think. And go check out those other videos that we were talking about, the dev stream, the after party with Des, Manarohan, and Redbeard. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with us.
And always join Pantheon Plus after parties. Like, even if you don't want to join in the green room and get on and talk, like the devs are like almost always there, and they almost always drop beans.
The after party is super fun though.
The devs are there.
Get in the green room. Like, let us know what you think. Nobody's gonna bite. Everybody's super friendly.
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly easy to get in the green room and just like talk. It's pretty cool actually. But yeah, the devs are there and they will drop beans.
I was super nervous the first time I did it, but everyone was so nice. As they are in this community. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, guys. See you next time.
Adios.
Good. Bye. I'm gonna say goodnight, but whatever. Goodbye.